So, we did have a couple of Honey Brew Mead. We're going to have a couple more. No, you know what we're going to do? We bought the good stuff. Where's the good stuff? Blackbriar Reserve. Let's have one of those. And then a couple more Honey Brew Mead. And we'll read a book. This is the very last book that is yet unread in the Wanderer's Tale mod book collection. And it is Wanderer's Tales Book 2. Book 1 was, of course, the tale of... oh god, what the hell? Valok, the jailer, Mirak, the traitor, I think? Mirak the traitor, Valok the jailer. So this is Book 2, the Tale of Movarth, and this will conclude the Wanderer's Tale readings. And essentially any readings that I make in this LP, I think, will probably be done. Oh, let's look at this. Probably be done right here. Where is this? This looks like, if I had to guess, well, if I know where this is, but if I had to guess, it's either the northern shore, that fort there is either the northern shore of Lake Honric, or it's the northern shore of Lake Ilanata. And Anai has actually been on the northern shore of Lake Ilanata because she crossed through whatever that pass is and came out on the northern shore and actually refilled her bottles right next to this sunken fort, I think, or very close to it. So I'm going to say it's not. It's actually Anai would recognize that. She might recognize it. She wouldn't know that there is a shrine to whoever the fuck that's supposed to be. Kinnereth? Mara? Kinnereth, I'm guessing. Right in the middle, on that island in the middle. Like she'd never seen that, but she knows where that is. She thinks she can make an educated guess about it anyway. Okay, well we probably won't see it in the LP, but kind of cool to have. Okay, so anyway, like I said, Wanderer's Tale Book 2, The Tale of Movarth. This is done by the gentleman who does the Elder Lore podcast, and it is part of the Wanderer's Tale mod, which you can find on the Steam workshop. And if you want to skip ahead to the end of this episode, you will not miss any action. We're just going to go to bed right after this. And we'll wake up bright and early tomorrow and do the final confrontation, the final battle, the conquest of Windhelm. So here it is, Wanderer's Tale Book 2, The Tale of Movarth by Carrick Oswin. Movarth, above all, was determined and unwavering, even as a young man. He found himself often in challenges of might and skill, and found himself often the victor. Even as a boy, he served as a page at the local chapter house of the renowned Fighters' Guild. There, against his father's wishes, he learned the skills of the blade. Movarth was often off running errands throughout the area, fetching steel or running letters, and as such was not often at home to help his father with the harvest. They argued often. This book has the word often in it a lot. I think I've read probably 100 words, and 7 or 8 of them have been often. They argued often, for Movarth felt himself more at home in the wide world than confined at home. And so it happened that one day, after father and son had argued loudly, young Movarth stormed out and did not return for 2 days. He did not want the members of the guild to see him vulnerable, and so for those 2 days he slept in a crawl space beneath the guild's rear entrance, and ate scraps from the garbage heaps behind the inns and taverns. After the second night, even headstrong Movarth could not bear it any longer, and so he returned home. He did not know what to expect upon seeing his father again. Perhaps he would be chided and chastised. Perhaps he would be wrapped in hugs and showered with apologies. At any rate, he was not expecting what he found. The home looked untouched from the outside, but as soon as he entered the front hall, he noticed something was wrong. There was no noise, but flies, and lots of them. There was no smell of food or sweat from a long day's work, but rather the metallic and stinging smell of blood, and lots of it. There was no light, though it was bright as day outside, for all the wall sconces had burned out. He crept through the house, running his hand along the wall for support, and he felt a wetness through his fingers as he entered the main hall. There was a great window at the end of the hall, and through it came a bright, shining light, giving form to all of Movarth's fears. In the middle of the hall, where there was once a fire pit that his mother used to cook her stew over, was a mass of writhing maggots and flies, picking apart what had once been his mother, his father, and his poor little sister. Their bodies were so torn and shredded that from a distance it appeared to be merely a pile of dirty rags and ripped clothing, but for the arms, legs, and hair that were mixed in. Movarth instantly retched, though he had little food in his belly that came up. His head was swimming, and he suddenly had an unbearable pounding in his head, but through gritted teeth and wincing pain he picked himself up and ran through the fields, back to the Fighters' Guild Hall. They received the frantic boy at the door, and listened with shocked faces as he recounted the events of the past few days, and then donned their armors and rode. There was Aelius, the Elde, and Ilka, who some said was fiercer than all the men of the guild at once. These three only could be spared from the guild's duties. Oh, there was Aelius and Elde, and Ilka. Okay, I thought it said Aelius and Elde, and I was like, what's an Elde? Okay. But these three were formidable indeed. It was decided that Movarth would stay at the guild hall, bathe, and be fed and warmed. Movarth the headstrong denied that he needed to be pampered so, but was overwhelmed and forced to stay. Minutes stretched to hours, and to Movarth it seemed as though hours passed into days and years and lifetimes. But before dark, the three who had ridden returned to the guild hall. Movarth was still confined to his chambers, but he could overhear the meeting in the grand meeting hall below him. The guild members spoke long into the night, and it seemed that there was a divide between those of action and those of indifference. One thing was certain, however: those responsible had been vampires. At long last it was decided, since the three who had ridden out had found no trace of those responsible, that nothing could be done, and in the morning the house would be burned. Movarth slept not that night, nor many nights followed. His dreams were often troubled by demons of the night, gnashing teeth and blood. As time passed, Movarth hardened himself against the pain and regret. He replaced his emptiness with a burning desire, a burning hatred. His purpose, then and forever after, to hunt down those who murdered his family. Years passed, and Movarth grew older, stronger, but also darker and more fierce. He often sat alone in the guild's libraries, brooding over old tomes about the undead scourge. When he fought, as was required of him since his induction into the guild, he preferred to do it face to face, and with his bare hands. He was as dangerous a warrior as any of his guildmates, without the use of steel or arrow. Sometimes, when his talents were not needed for a contract, he would leave town and go off into the world. He told no one, but his guildmates knew what he was up to. He often traveled far abroad in search of knowledge about the vampires. Movarth may have been burning angry, but he was not a fool. He knew that, before he could make his move against the vampires, he would need to know as much as he could about them. His travels became more and more frequent, and sometimes he would come back with grave injuries or deep scars. He slept more often during the day, and stole away during the night. His guildmates became concerned that perhaps he, too, was becoming that which he hated. But it was not so. It was true. Movarth became consumed by his desire to kill vampires, but to do so he needed to become like them. He adapted their lifestyle as best he could. After all, how could one hunt something that moves at night, during the day? And so, Movarth's personal quest had replaced his responsibilities to the guild. It was with heavy heart and bitter ceremony that Movarth was expelled from the guild. They were loath to see him go, for they knew that they lost perhaps one of the greatest warriors they would ever know, but it had to be done. Movarth traveled around aimless for a while, following cold trails and seeking out false leads on his quest for vampires. This was how he met the young and lithe Tessina Grey. A knight she was, from some lord somewhere in the Heartlands, tracking a coven through the swamps east of Leowin. They traveled together for a time, until it seemed as if the coven was not to be found, and made camp in the mire. They spoke into the morning, exchanging stratagem and lore and stories. She told Movarth of a priest, old and fragile, but a scholar in the history and physiology of vampires. Movarth noted the information. It was just before the sun was about to peek through the bog trees that the vampires fell upon them. The battle was quick and bloody. They struck and retreated like a viper, but not before Tessina and Movarth could take 3 of them down. When they were gone, and their cries could be heard like ghost screams, retreating into the bogs, Tessina realized she had been bitten. Her face drained of color, and they stared at each other for a long moment. Movarth granted her mercy. He granted her peace. He murdered her with his bare hands. There was fire in his soul, and for Movarth there were no friends, only foes. One cold and starless night, many days since the encounter in the bogs, Movarth came calling at the chapel of the priest Tessina had told him about. They spoke long into the night, and Movarth was indeed impressed by the priest's knowledge. Nor did the priest seem to tire of the conversation, though he was, as Tessina had said, old and fragile. Movarth asked the priest about the Volkihar, the paranoid and cruel tribe of vampires in the eastern regions of Skyrim, who could freeze a victim's blood in their veins, and listened intently to all of the priest's answers. The next morning he was gone. He did not return to the priest for several days, for he had hitched a wagon bound for Skyrim. When he returned to the priest, he had a fresh scar on his cheek. Next, he asked about the vampires of the northern jungles of Valenwood. The priest told all, speaking of the Bonsamu, indistinguishable from normal Bosmer except by candlelight, and the Kirilth, who could disintegrate into mist, the Yakef, who swallowed men whole, the Telbuth, who preyed on children and took their place in the family. And again, Movarth was gone in the morning, traveling to the remote jungles in northern Valenwood to put knowledge into practice. It was weeks before Movarth returned to the priest, and indeed the priest had begun to worry about Movarth's fate. But return he did, and this time he asked about the vampires of Cyrodiil. Now, it is known that the vampires of Cyrodiil are from one ancient and powerful tribe, who have, in the long stretches of history, eliminated all competing covens in the province. They are undoubtedly the most civilized and well-fed vampires in Tamriel, and as such are indistinguishable from their prey. And again, Movarth was soon off to Cyrodiil in search of the oldest and most secretive sect of vampires in Tamriel. And so, after weeks of searching, I met him in a smoky tavern in seedy Breville. His spirit had been broken, for his search had come up empty. Never before had he been confronted with a task that he could not see through, and it pained him so. And so he sat, in among the skooma addicts and drunks, preparing for his humble journey back to the priest. You might be wondering why an old man would tell this story. You might brush me off and forget about it by morning, and continue on your journey to Riften. I am not sure what happened to brave Movarth after that night I met him in Breville, but listen close enough, and you will hear tell of a master vampire near Morthal, in the cold north. A vampire, they say, though he used to be a vampire hunter. Used to be one of the strongest trainers the Fighter Guild ever had. He trusted a priest, they say, and at the moment when it seemed like he could not find a vampire in Cyrodiil, he found one closer than he thought. He trusted a priest, and by a priest he was betrayed. For when Movarth returned to the small chapel and talked once again with the fragile old man, Movarth saw the twinkle of an evil fire behind the old man's eyes. And Movarth, headstrong Movarth, was taken by surprise. Holy shit, you guys, that was fucking excellent. That was amazing. I'm so glad I saved that for last. Wow. I mean, I know the tale of Movarth. I know the story behind it because I've read Immortal Blood and I finished the Movarth quest before, and Naig herself has finished the Movarth quest. But man, what fantastic storytelling. Really fleshed out the character. Like now I'm like, oh shit, I wish I would have read this before the quest in Morthal, because now I feel bad that I didn't maybe lament, spend more time over Movarth's body and kind of try to do some kind of consecration or something, because this story was fantastic. Really makes you feel bad for the poor dude. Family killed by vampires. Loses his mind essentially in the effort to destroy what destroyed his family. And then, of course, loses his soul to it as well. In the end. Man. Really well done. Wow, fantastic. The whole Wanderer's Tale mod has been good. I've liked it. I know it's incomplete. I know the mod maker is still adding books and he's adding AI to the wanderer himself. He's supposed to wander around Skyrim, and you're supposed to encounter him on the roads, kind of like Maik. So far, you just encounter him in inns or in the college. But so I know it's not a finished product. I wanted to be too critical of it because I know that it's not the final vision is not yet in the game. But the stories are good. The lore is good. I like that he's compiled all this lore and got it in one friendly place where it's easy to read. And the Valok and Mirak story was okay. I liked it. It was good. It was well told. But this one, man, talk about like character depth and really well done. I'm going to, when the next video starts, I'm going to recommend anybody that did skip this should come back here and listen to it because they missed out. Man, what a story. That was really good. And it actually affects Anaig personally, to learn this. She's like, oh, shit. Yeah, Movarth. So, she knew that he was a vampire hunter, but that's kind of all you learn from Immortal Blood, just that he was a vampire hunter. That's it. Obviously, this book isn't canon, isn't game canon. The Elder Scrolls. Bethesda didn't write this. This was written by a fan. But it sure is lore-friendly. You could believe every detail in this thing. Wow. Yeah, really well done. So yeah, anyway, so now Anaig's thinking, after having read that, well, first off, that's a bummer of a thing to have to read before you go to bed. That's a sad story. Second, it's a bummer of a thing to have to read before you're supposed to go fight a huge battle tomorrow because, well, this dude's passion ended up consuming him, made him into a lost cause. In fact, made him into what he despised the most. So that's kind of a bummer. But Anaig's second worst foe in Skyrim since she got here, after the conspirators who murdered her king, her worst foe in Skyrim was vampires. She contracted it twice, at least. Was able to heal herself of it, of course, before it became full-blown. She destroyed the vampire coven in Morthal that was Movarth's coven. And she's fought off vampires every time that she's seen them, basically. She's witnessed vampires killing people in Riften, killing people in Morthal, killing people in Solitude. A vampire killed Aktieve, her friend. This is not just like, oh, vampires are just kind of rotten, but live and let live. She let one vampire live that she's encountered. One that helped us in... God, where did it help us? Was that in... I think it was in the Silver Hand fort, whose name I forget. Not Gallows Rock, but the other one, where we went to go get the helm for Corir, I think. Anyway, sorry, I don't want to talk too long here, but just trying to fit this into Anaig's character. So, if anything, this tale has reinforced to Anaig that vampires just must not be allowed to continue to exist. They must be destroyed. She has more pressing business right now. She has to take care of this Windhelm battle, and she wants to get back home so that she can try to help Farron put itself back together and to clear her own name. But once that's done, I think she's going to... and of course the Vigilance of Stendarr, their hall being destroyed, she feels much sympathy for them too. So all those things together, once she's gotten back home and she's established that Farron is in a good place and that she's cleared her name, she's going to dedicate herself to the destruction of vampires. And if that means she has to join the Vigilance of Stendarr, or if she's just going to do it on her own, or if she's going to try to find some other group that does it, that's going to be her mission, I think. From the end of this LP to the end of her life, her career as an adventurer is going to be to find and destroy vampires. And not because of anything that they've done to her personally. She doesn't want to become Movarth. She doesn't want to become so consumed that she loses her humanity. But she thinks that she could perhaps do the job that Movarth did, but because she's a step removed from vampires herself, she can fight them with greater caution, a more level head, and perhaps do more good than Movarth did, and avoid that fate. Wow. Excellent story. And really fits where the character is heading after this, the conclusion of this campaign, I think. Groovy. Very groovy. Very well done. Well done. Wanderer's Tale mod. Well done, Elder Lore Podcast, gentlemen. You have thoroughly impressed. Let's see, so it's almost 8, so 8 plus 9, 15, okay. If we do 10 hours, that'll get us up at 5:48. No, that's not enough time. Let's do 9. 4:48, we'll wake up, and we'll be on our way to the parent military camp that they established just outside of Windhelm. We got to look for blue butterfly wings and creep cluster.